Amid escalating tensions with China, the Philippines is set to receive its second batch of BrahMos supersonic cruise missiles from India.
January 2022, a $375 million contract is signed. By April 2025, 2 BrahMos batteries rise on Philippine soil, a weapon once thought impossible for Manila to own. But just as the world begins to adjust to this new reality, the Philippines quietly sets its eyes on something even deadlier. In 2025 alone, reports confirm 2 shocking moves. A $200 million Akash air defense shield built to block hostile aircraft before they ever cross the horizon, and trials of the Prali missile, a quasi-ballistic weapon that bends through the sky, evading interceptors and striking with pinpoint precision. For decades, the Philippines was mocked as defenseless, too small, too weak, too dependent. But now, it is building a 3-layer deterrent that could punish any aggressor without ever matching their size. The question is, can Manila turn this momentum into a real missile grid before the next clash in the West Philippine Sea turns bloody? Because these deals are no longer dreams. They are already moving, tested, and negotiated in 2025. This is the untold story of how, after BrahMos, the Philippines is arming itself with India's next deadly missiles, and why this could redraw Asia's balance of power. In 2012, the Scarborough Shoal standoff left the Philippines humiliated. Chinese vessels surrounded the reef. Philippine ships were blocked, shadowed, and forced to retreat. The nation watched as its own waters slipped away. The message was clear. Manila was powerless at sea. For years, the memory of Scarborough burned like an open wound. By 2016, the Permanent Court of Arbitration ruled in Manila's favor. The tribunal declared China's 9-dash line invalid. On paper, it was a victory, but on the water, nothing changed. Chinese Coast Guard ships still roamed. Chinese fishermen still controlled the shoal, and the Philippines still had no teeth. That began to change in 2022. On January 28th, Manila signed a $375 million deal for 3 BrahMos batteries. It was the first major long-range missile contract in the country's history. For the first time, deterrence had a real meaning. By April 2024, the first battery arrived. By April 2025, the second was delivered. Supersonic missiles now stood ready, capable of sinking hostile ships in seconds. The shift was emotional as much as military, from helplessness to real power, from being mocked as defenseless to holding weapons that even great powers feared. For decades, the Philippines was bullied at sea, but now its coastline had fangs. Each BrahMos launcher symbolized a nation no longer willing to be pushed aside. Each missile carried the memory of Scarborough and the promise of payback. But as powerful as BrahMos was, it raised a deeper question. Stopping ships was only the first layer. What about the skies above? In February 2025, reports confirmed a new deal, a $200 million contract for Akash surface-to-air missiles. This was not about the sea anymore. It was about the sky. For the first time in its history, the Philippines moved to guard its airspace with real teeth. The Akash system was born in India's DRDO labs. It could track multiple targets, from fighters to drones, and kill them before they closed in. Its record was stunning. 96% interception reliability. For a country once mocked as open and exposed, that number meant hope. It meant the sky was no longer just a corridor for intruders. It could finally bite back. Imagine the difference. For years, Chinese drones circled Philippine bases, gathering data. For years, Chinese jets flew menacing patrols, daring Manila to respond. Now, with Akash batteries, those same flights became riskier. A single press of a button could erase an enemy fighter. A swarm of drones could be shredded in the air before reaching their target. The emotional weight was heavy. Filipino soldiers who once watched helplessly could now defend their land and families. Mothers in villages near the coastline could finally believe the sky above was not owned by someone else. The message was unmistakable. Philippine bases would no longer be easy prey. Chinese jets might still roar. Chinese drones might still probe. But the shield was rising, line by line, battery by battery. And yet defense is never enough, because a shield can only protect. It cannot decide the battle. To truly survive, you must also strike back. In July 2025, India's DRDO announced a breakthrough. The Pralay missile had been fully validated. Its tests proved both its minimum range and maximum range, showing it was now export ready. And among the first potential buyers was the Philippines. Unlike BrahMos, Pralay was not built for the sea. It was built for the land, a tactical surface-to-surface missile that could launch from hidden trucks. Its numbers stunned analysts: a 290-kilometer range, a maneuvering re-entry vehicle to evade interceptors, and a circular error probability of less than 10 meters. In plain words, Pralay could hit a target the size of a house at near supersonic speed. For the Philippines, this was revolutionary. A weak state, long seen as incapable of deep strikes, was now looking at a weapon that could reach far into an enemy's theater. And not just reach, but strike with terrifying precision. Road-mobile launchers meant the missiles could be moved and hidden anywhere. One day parked in a forest, the next day on a highway, ready to fire. To China, this was unexpected. They had prepared for Philippine patrol boats, for weak frigates, for symbolic aircraft. They had not prepared for a potential precision strike grid on Luzon itself. The emotional shift was huge. From being bullied in the South China Sea to holding a silent sword that could punish anyone who crossed too far. It was a glimpse of a new Philippines, not just on defense, but on the offense. Still, a deeper question remained. Why was India the one providing these weapons, and not Washington? In August 2025, a new milestone was signed. The Philippines and India declared a formal strategic partnership. The agreement went beyond simple trade. It tied the two nations in defense, in technology, and in trust. Weeks later, their navies sailed together across the Indo-Pacific, side by side, symbol and signal. For the first time, the Philippines was securing missile partners not in the West, but in Asia itself. This was not a token gesture. It was a shift in the entire map of alliances. For decades, Manila relied on the United States' American weapons, American bases, American promises. But America also held back. Restricted technology, slow deliveries, political conditions tied to every deal. India offered something else, a willingness to share systems that others kept locked away. The BrahMos, the Akash, now the Pralay. Weapons that gave the Philippines not only defense, but real deterrence. And with those weapons came something rarer: trust. For Filipino leaders, the emotional weight was clear. India was not a distant patron, but a regional partner, an Asian giant willing to treat Manila as an equal. The conflict was deeper than weapons. It was old dependence on Western powers versus new solidarity among Asian states facing the same storm. The message was clear. The Philippines was no longer just America's small ally. It was building ties that could stand even if Washington looked away. And the timing could not be more urgent, because the region was already heating. Tensions were rising, and the next move might come sooner than anyone expected. In January 2025, another shock rippled through the region. The United States deployed its Typhoon mid-range missile system to Luzon. It was the first time American long-range fires had ever touched Philippine soil. The island instantly became more than just a front line. It became a launch pad no rival could afford to ignore. The numbers told their own story. The Philippines was now the only country on Earth to host not one, not two, but three different allied missile systems. The BrahMos from India, the Akash shield for the skies, and the Typhoon from America. For a nation once dismissed as a mere pawn, this was transformation. No longer a helpless bystander, no longer a silent spectator. The archipelago had become a critical platform, capable of shaping the entire Indo-Pacific chessboard. The emotional impact was profound. Generations who had seen their homeland treated as expendable now saw it valued as essential. Chinese jets might intimidate. Chinese ships might press forward. But facing the combined firepower of Allied missiles on Luzon, the calculus shifted. For Beijing, every move suddenly carried risk. For Manila, every day now carried leverage. The conflict was no longer just one-sided pressure. It was becoming a contest of real dominance. And at its center stood the Philippines, a state once thought too weak to matter, now armed with weapons that could tip the balance of power. But how did this path cement itself so quickly? What turned signatures on paper into real steel on the ground? In 2019, the Reed Bank incident exposed the nation's pain. A Philippine fishing boat was rammed and left adrift. Its crew floated helplessly on open waters, saved only when passing ships intervened. The message was clear. The Philippines was vulnerable, and the world barely noticed. By 2023, that began to change. A new Coast Guard strategy was launched. Instead of hiding confrontations, Manila began to broadcast them. Every Chinese vessel shadowing, every blockade, every water cannon blast, the world could now see. On March 5th, 2024, that strategy reached its breaking point. The Philippines was no longer betting on a single weapon. It was building a full layered grid. At the sea, the BrahMos missile stood ready. Its supersonic speed could shred warships before they reached Philippine shores. At the sky, the Akash shield now loomed. Jets and drones that once circled freely could be struck down before crossing the horizon. And on the land, the Prali missile whispered a new threat. A road-mobile, precision sword capable of punishing bases, depots, and launch sites far beyond the coast. Together, these three formed something unseen before. A layered deterrent, a fortress of fire. And the fact that all three came from a single partner, India, made the transformation even more striking. Every system was road mobile. Every launcher could hide in a forest, a village, or on an empty highway. To an enemy's eyes, the threat became unpredictable. This was the emotional leap, from once being defenseless, mocked and ignored, to now being unpredictable, armed with weapons that could not be easily tracked or stopped. China's gray zone tactics, water cannons, blockades, and patrols suddenly faced a different backdrop. A nation no longer only reacting, but ready to bite back from sea, sky, and land. The Philippines was no longer a pawn in someone else's game. It was slowly becoming a fortress in its own right. So what does this transformation truly mean? By 2030, the picture could look very different. The Philippines may host not only Indian missiles, but also American systems and even Japanese batteries. Layer by layer, the archipelago would bristle with firepower. Analysts already call it a regional missile porcupine. A small state covered in spikes pointing in every direction. To strike it would mean getting impaled from sea, sky, and land all at once. 3 Allied arsenals deployed on Philippine soil, woven into a single grid. A fortress so dense that even a great power would think twice before taking the risk. For the Philippines, this is survival redefined. The weak no longer outlast the strong by matching their numbers. They endure by making every attack unbearably costly. Every hostile ship risks a BrahMos. Every intruding jet risks an Akash. Every hidden base risks a silent Pralay strike. The emotional change is profound. A people once mocked as powerless now learn that true strength can come from sharp defenses, not from overwhelming force. The conflict sharpens. Beijing's constant pressure, its patrols, its blockades, its shadow games, now faces a Manila that survives not by fear, but by deterrence. Like a porcupine in the wild, small yet untouchable, the Philippines finds safety in its spikes, which leads to the final realization: how a small nation quietly defeated its greatest fear. The Philippines is no longer the weakest link in Asia. It has become the hinge, the place where the balance of deterrence now swings. The twist is striking. It was not massive warships that redrew the map. It was missiles. It was alliances. It was a network of shared firepower that turned the archipelago from pawn to pivot. The moral is clear. Small states do not win by trying to match giants. They win by making themselves untouchable. They win by making every strike too costly, every aggression too dangerous to even attempt. The emotional journey is undeniable. From the humiliation of Scarborough in 2012 to the shadow of Pralay in 2025, Manila has rewritten its own destiny. The echo of the hook returns. After BrahMos, the next deadly missiles arrived, and with them, everything changed. So the question now burns: is this the dawn of Asia's new missile age? An age where the small reshape the power balance and the weak finally become too sharp to break. The Philippines did not fire a single shot, yet it built a wall of fire around its islands. From BrahMos on the coasts, to Akash in the skies, to Pralay in the shadows, Manila forged a shield that no rival can ignore. In the Indo-Pacific, survival no longer belongs to the biggest fleets or the strongest armies. It belongs to those who prepare first, those who turn weakness into deterrence, and those who make every attack too costly to try. But this story is still unfolding. Subscribe now for more shocking shifts in global power. And ask yourself, will Pralay and Akash make Manila truly untouchable? Or is the real battle yet to come?